Well, here we go again. Today we're reviewing 2022's Game of the Year. A game so difficult yet so captivating that you have no other choice than to sit through the "You Died" screen multiple times in a row, just in an effort to come back and do it again better. Except you don't. Hi folks, my name is Paul Irizarry with Dad's XP, and today you are watching Should a Dad Play, the show where we review video games from a dad's perspective so that you know what you're getting yourself into. And boy, this one's a doozy, but in a good way. Also a really bad and frustrating way. You know what? Let's just get right into the review. If you enjoy reviews from a dad's perspective, don't forget to comment, like the video, and subscribe. Your support helps us create more reviews like this. Remember, we're dads just like you, so taking time out to not just play the game, but, change a diaper or two, make some breakfast, maybe dinner, clean around the house, then sit down, play a video game, and record this, take some time. So we do support your support, and without any further delay, let's go ahead with the review. So to start things off, let's talk about the story of Elden Ring. Imagine this huge, fantastical world called the Lands Between. It used to be ruled by an immortal queen named Marika, who kept everything in check with a powerful artifact called the Elden Ring. But one day, she shattered the ring, and her demigod children went nuts, fighting all over for the pieces. So now the whole place is in chaos, and you step into the world as a tarnished, sort of like an exile called back to fix things. Your mission is pretty simple. I mean, just find these great runes held by the demigods and then put the Elden Ring back together and restore order. Easy and super easy, bro. Like, it's straight point A to point B. Psych. It is not. This game is very difficult. Along the way, you'll meet all sorts of characters, fight epic bosses, and uncover the deep lore of the land. Now, trust me, the lore is pretty deep. You can go in and do a bunch of side quests and dive in and go through all the wikis and all that, but in the sake of keeping things a little bit more, I guess, normal or average consumer base, we're just going to go ahead and say, yeah, there's a deep lore in there. It is a tough journey. The world is beautiful, stunning, and there's a bunch of secrets to explore. So, those late night game sessions, once the kids are in bed, this is a great game just to lose yourself in. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing. Let's talk about the graphics and audio for this game, right? So the game's visuals are pretty stunning. You get to roam through an incredible environment, incredible environments. You have dense forests. You have some interesting swamps, and by interesting, I mean they're like kind of spooky, foggy-ish type vibe. You have huge castles. You have ruins. There's a lot of detail in this game, and it no stranger to why it's won so many awards, right? There's a lot of detail built in here, and a lot of times you won't notice it at first glance, but don't worry, you'll die so many times that you'll be able to go back to it. So don't worry if you miss something the first time around, you'll be back. But yeah, the game usually runs at 60 frames per second. We reviewed this game on the PS5. It is not running natively it's a PS4 version of the game. But trust me, the world is so immersive, you won't even mind any sort of little hiccups if you're running like a few frames behind, or if you're on PC, you have some rendering issues or something. You won't mind. The game is very well optimized for whatever console or graphics you're using, so it'll be good. In terms of the audio, however, just kidding. No, however, it is still top notch. The soundtrack by Yuka Kitamura is haunting and atmospheric, pulling you into the dark, mysterious world. Each of its area has its own unique music, and the score really ramps up during the epic boss fights. It adds a lot of tension. The sound effects, from sword clashes to the ambient noises, it makes everything feel very real. And then there is voice acting in there, and it's excellent. It adds to the depth of the characters and story. It's almost like you're part of a very twisted fantasy movie, if you will. Moving on over to the gameplay mechanics, let's talk about exploration and open world, because there's a bunch of different things I want to talk about here. I'll kind of list them out for you in case you kind of want to skim through. We have the exploration, the open world, the combat and the customization, the spirit summoning and multiplayer, character progression and build variety, boss fights and challenges, crafting and item use, just to name a few. So I'll go through them, kind of run through what I think of each part of the gameplay and mechanics that I listed out here, just to kind of give everybody a general idea of what the game is about. If you've never played a Souls game, which is a lot, I should have probably started with that. But let's go ahead and talk about exploration and open world, and then I'll end with the Souls games. So in Elden Ring, you get to explore this massive world, again, called the Lands Between. It's not your typical linear game where you're just following a set path. You can roam freely, and there's always something new to find, whether it's hidden dungeons, epic bosses, or secret areas. The world is designed to reward your curiosity, so going off of the main path often leads to cool discoveries and valuable items. Moving on over to combat and customization, the combating in Elden Ring is a mix of precise melee fighting and magical abilities. You can customize your character in all sorts of ways, focusing on melee, magic, or a hybrid of both. The game has a crafting system, so you can make items like bombs and antidotes from materials as you find them exploring. This adds another layer of strategy on how you approach battles and manage your resources, since some bosses are weak to like fire, some bosses are more prone to just sharp objects and bleeding, so stuff like that. So spirit summoning and multiplayer. A really cool feature is the ability to summon spirits to help you fight. These spirits can distract enemies, giving you a better chance to strike, especially in tough boss battles. The very first boss battle is a pretty good example about this. The game also has a multiplayer aspect where you can team up with other players or challenge them in PvP duels. This makes the game more social and adds a dynamic element to the experience. Moving on over to character progression and build variety, you earn runes by defeating enemies, which then you can use to level up, buy items, and upgrade your gear. The game encourages you to experiment with different builds, so you can easily re-specialize your character around to try out new skills and equipment. So you're not really locked into one playstyle if you started building and you didn't like how you ended up. This makes it fun and easy to keep things new, and it keeps the gameplay fresh. So like if you saw a pretty cool build online, you can just, pull up and rebuild your character. Moving on over to the boss fights and challenges. The boss fights are a major highlight. They are the highlight of the game. Each boss fight is unique and requires both skill and strategy to defeat. Some bosses are hidden, some are optional, so exploring the world thoroughly can lead to these epic encounters. Now, these fights are challenging, but incredibly rewarding when you finally do take down a tough opponent. No stranger to this. This is a very tough game. So I will preface with that. If you're a dad and you haven't played for a while, I mean, I'm a dad too. I haven't played for a while. I still play this game. It's going to be very challenging, but it is rewarding. So that trade-off is pretty well balanced, surprisingly enough. Now let's talk about crafting and item use. The crafting system lets you create a variety of useful items from materials you gather while exploring. You can make throwable weapons, potions, and other consumables that give you an edge in combat. You can craft these items on the go, which means you're always prepared for whatever challenges come your way without having to backtrack to a merchant or anything like that. And then talking about Souls games, basically what we mean by Souls games is that they're very incredibly difficult. You build your character, and the goal is basically challenging bosses to progress throughout the story. That's the gist of it. A lot of other games are adapting that in case you've been out of the loop for a second. But moving on with the review, we're going to go ahead and talk about the controls and the replay value. So starting off with the controls in Elden Ring are really smooth and intuitive. If you've played Dark Souls or Bloodborne, you'll feel right at home because it uses a similar setup. Moving your character around is fluid, and the combat, which mixes melee, magic, and dodging, feels tight and precise. You can lock on to enemies to make targeting easier, which helps out a lot with timing your attacks and defenses. Switching between weapons and items is quick and adds a nice strategic layer to fights. One of the cool features is Torrent, your spirit steed. You can summon him almost anywhere outside of dungeons, which makes getting around a lot faster and adds a new element to combat. Fighting on horseback feels natural and smooth, letting you attack and dodge while riding. And then the replay value. Elden Ring has tons of replay value. The world is huge, so there's always something new to find, even after playing for hours. There are multiple endings based on the choices you make, which means you'll want to play through the game a few times to see everything. Plus, the character customization is deep, so you can experiment with different builds each time. Whether you focus on melee, magic, or a mix, each playthrough can feel fresh and different. The multiplayer aspect is another big draw. You can team up with other players to take on tough bosses or challenge them to PvP duels. This adds a social element to the game and keeps it exciting long after you've finished the main story. In a nutshell, Elden Ring is not just a one-and-done kind of game. It offers plenty of reasons to come back and explore its worlds again, making it a game you can enjoy for a long time. Also, there's a DLC coming around the corner. Now let's talk about microtransactions, because this is a new segment we've added to our reviews, because the state of the gaming industry always involves microtransactions now, and you sometimes don't buy the full game. So what about Elden Ring? Well, in Elden Ring, you don't have to worry about microtransactions. From Software has kept the game free of its typical in-game purchases that can sometimes disrupt the experience. This means you won't be tempted or pressured to spend extra money on in-game item, currencies, or cosmetic upgrades. Everything you need to succeed and enjoy the game can be earned through gameplay. Now, there is some DLC coming through, but it is more of an expansion rather than cosmetic. Just letting you guys know. We will be reviewing the DLC as well. Now, product availability, which is another feature that we've been bringing into our reviews now that's brand new. Basically, what we do with product availability is whether it's exclusively digital, if it's digital and physical, or if it's just physical. So in this case, Elden Ring is widely available, both digitally and in physical form. You can purchase it for multiple platforms, including PS4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One. It's everywhere. It's pretty much everywhere. Elden Ring is a masterclass of Souls games, and it's going to be very difficult to find a successor to this game. In fact, the DLC alone coming soon is going to be difficult to surpass what was already set in place. With that, Elden Ring will be receiving a score of 10 out of 10 from Dad's XP. Yes, you should totally play this game, if nothing more, just to make sure that your son doesn't throw a controller in his room, or your daughter throws a controller in their room while they're playing this game later down in their teenage years. But this is a masterful game, a masterclass of a game, a masterpiece of a game. And I do recommend you go ahead and pick it up, especially now where you should be able to find it at a discount before the DLC releases. With Dad's XP, my name's Paul Irizarry, and until next time, take it easy.